So there's well over 100 million credit card users here in the US, including some people who struggle with them and then others who sort of just manage them okay. But there's also a select few within the top 1% of people using credit cards who are actually profiting from them, paying $0 in interest, and even traveling the world using the points and miles they earn. So in this video, I want to talk to you guys about the 10 signs that you might also be a part of this top 1% of credit card users as well, starting with the first sign here, which is very important, and that is that you pay off your balance on time and in full every single month. Now, this is really the foundation of playing the whole credit card game responsibly, and it sort of sets up the more advanced stuff we'll talk about later on. But the fact is that if you don't pay off the full statement balance on a credit card by the payment due date, you're going to start getting charged interest at rates that can exceed 20 to 30% APR. And the longer you carry those balances, the more that amount owed is going to start to compound and grow, making it harder and harder to pay back. The math just never adds up because earning 1 to 5% back in rewards on your credit card is never going to exceed the 20 to 30% you're paying annually in interest. So my rule of thumb that I followed pretty much from the very beginning of my whole credit card journey is that I only use a credit card to pay for something if I know that I already have the cash set aside in a separate bank account to pay for that purchase. That way I can later pay that off in full. Now, on top of paying off your credit cards in full, you've also got to make sure here that you're making that payment on time by that due date each month. And that's because if you miss a payment and then it becomes more than 30 days past due, the credit card issuer is going to then report it over to the credit bureaus, where your credit score will take a massive hit. Even a single missed payment can drop your credit score by as much as 100 points or more. This actually then becomes a very long-term problem for you because that missed payment is going to take 7 years to fall off your credit report, sort of just causing your score to stay way lower than it should be for most of that time as your score recovers. So yeah, this is sort of basic stuff that I've talked about before, but for everyone out there who is using credit cards the right way, they're all going to tell you that it starts with paying them off on time and in full. But now next here, for the second sign that you're in the top 1% of credit card users, we're going to go ahead and start to think a little bit more about what cards to actually get. So that sign is that you're patient and strategic with getting new credit cards. Now, to boil this down into one word, the best credit card users have a lot of intention with what credit cards they choose to have in their wallet and what credit cards they want to apply for next. But for someone out there who really doesn't have a plan, they might just carry a random hotel card from Marriott or something because they kind of stay there occasionally. They might also have a store credit card from Best Buy just because maybe one time they got a discount when they financed their laptop, or they might even keep signing up for airline credit cards at the end of their flights because they're very easily sold by the flight attendants. Honestly, usually the best credit card offers are not going to be the ones you have to sign up for on the spot, but instead, really the best deals are going to require a bit more research because you might just have to dig a little bit deeper about a certain card to learn that, okay, normally this card is offering 60,000 points as a sign-up bonus, but right now they're running this sort of limited time offer that's for 80,000 points, so it's probably a good time to go ahead and take advantage of that. Or you might even have to understand what the value of a point actually is because, for example, this Amex Hilton Honors Surpass card earns 6x points for dining, groceries, and gas, along with 4x for online purchases and 3x on all other purchases, which sounds like you might be able to earn a ton of points. But if you go ahead and do some research, you're going to find that Hilton points are notoriously lower in value and worth about half a cent per point each, making these categories more like 3% in value for dining, groceries, and gas, and then 2% in value for online purchases and 1.5% for everything else. I think some people know that they should be getting more value from their credit cards because they hear stories about other people doing that, but they don't really go ahead and take the extra step to learn about what credit cards are actually going to be worth having because not all cards are created equal. The best credit card users understand this here, so they're going to be very strategic about why they choose to get certain credit cards over others. Plus, they're also very, very patient by not just applying for cards spontaneously, but rather waiting to take advantage of the best limited time offers on cards that provide the most outsized value compared to the competition. Now, that brings me to the third thing here that top credit card users do, and that is that they understand that sign-up bonuses are going to be much better than spending multipliers when it comes to generating the highest return on your spend. Now, return on spend is basically just an easy way to go ahead and look at the rewards we're earning to see if we're getting the most value back for every single dollar we spend. And it's pretty easy to calculate this because we just have to take the value of the points or the cash back we earn for something divided by the money spent, and then that is going to give us a percentage. For example, if we look at one of my favorite no annual fee credit cards with the Capital One Saver one, this credit card here is known for getting 3% cash back on dining, entertainment, popular streaming services, and at grocery stores. So if I spent $100 at a grocery store, I know I'm going to earn $3 back from that for a return on spend of 3%, which is obviously just the advertised cashback rate. But this card also has a sign-up bonus where new cardholders can earn $200 back after spending $500 within the first 3 months months of account opening. So if we do $200 for the sign-up bonus divided by the $500 minimum spend required to get that, we're gonna see here that that's gonna be equal to a 40% return on spend on that first $500 of purchases, and that is gonna be obviously way higher than the normal 3% return on spend from the standard multipliers. Now, the idea here behind understanding return on spend is that with most top credit cards that are out there on the market, they're gonna have some pretty good sign-up bonuses that can give us a return that's on average between maybe 15 and 40%, sort of just depending on the card and depending on how you want to use certain points. But that is always going to beat the standard 1.5 to 5% return on spend that normal everyday spending multipliers on these cards can offer. So to myself and to many other savvy credit card users, we try to take advantage of this by getting at least a few new credit cards every single year for their sign-up bonuses to basically accelerate the speed at which we can accumulate a bunch of points. And then at the same time, we also try to keep in mind that we have to pace ourselves and we're not always going to be working on a new sign-up bonus. When we're not working on a bonus, we also want to make sure that we're building out what I call a good core credit card setup. And that's basically a setup that's earning a minimum of 3 to 5x back on specific categories like dining, groceries, gas, and travel, and then at least 1.5 to 2x back on everything else. Now, when it comes to taking advantage of sign-up bonuses, you're going to run into the issue that some of these credit cards out there with the best bonuses have annual fees. But for the next sign that you're a top credit card user, that is going to be that you're actually not afraid of those annual fees, and here's why. So to get comfortable with paying to hold a certain credit card, I really think that understanding some basic math here helps out a lot. And that's because the only reason to really ever consider paying an annual fee in the first place is that when you run the numbers, you know that you're going to be getting some positive expected value. Now, for me, I like to calculate expected value in two ways. So I look at the value that a credit card can give me in year one with that card, as well as in year two and beyond. And the reason for that is because with most credit cards out there, you can pretty easily justify paying an annual fee for your first year when you know there's going to be a pretty lucrative sign-up bonus attached to it. For example, the Chase Sapphire Preferred is going to be a great way to look at this. So with the CSP, you can go ahead and earn a standard bonus of 60,000 points after spending $4,000 in the first 3 months. And that bonus is worth a minimum of $750 when redeemed through Chase Travel, or even potentially more when you know how to transfer points. There's also a $50 hotel credit here for this card that we get every single year when we book a hotel stay through Chase, which I think most average travelers can pretty easily use. But there is a $95 annual fee that we got to consider as well. So if we take $750 in value from the sign-up bonus plus $50 from that hotel credit minus $95 for the annual fee, that's going to give us an estimate that we can get $705 of positive expected value in year one. Now, in year two and beyond that, there's obviously not going to be a sign-up bonus, but we still have that $95 annual fee. However, there's also still that $50 hotel credit. So for the expected value here, that's going to be around negative $45 per year. But there's still going to be a bunch of spending multipliers and other features on the CSP, and you can also earn points on the Chase Freedom Flex and Chase Freedom Unlimited cards, where you can then combine all those Chase points you earn together under your Sapphire Preferred. So realistically, most people out there are still very likely coming out ahead over the long run with a very basic setup like this. But what if something changes with Chase or with your spending habits, and then you start getting negative expected value at some point in the future on a card with an annual fee? Luckily, the top 1% always prepare for stuff like this. So for the next sign that you're a part of that top 1% is that you always have a backup plan or some sort of a plan B. Now, when a credit card with an annual fee no longer makes sense for you, you sort of have 4 options for how you can go ahead and handle that. So you can keep the card open and then just take the hit with the annual fee, which is never really a good choice. You can cancel the card, which isn't always the worst option, but it's not always the best option either. You can potentially product change that credit card over to another no annual fee card from the same issuer, otherwise known as downgrading. Or you might even be able to ask for what's called a retention offer, where the issuer just could give you some sort of an extra incentive to keep your card open instead of canceling it. What the best credit card users do here is they understand these options, and they also understand how they work with each credit card they're interested in before they ever even think about applying for that card. That way, if at some point in the future they eventually decide that a certain card is no longer giving them positive expected value, they can just go ahead and make adjustments as they go, and everything is still very much fine because they had a backup plan in place. Now, not every credit card is going to offer retention offers, and only some credit cards do offer downgrade paths over to no annual fee cards. So again, you always got to do your own research, and you always got to plan out the pros and the cons for each credit card you want to get before you apply. Now, next, I want to quickly touch on one thing that's going to be outside of personal cards, because the top credit card users are also taking advantage of business credit cards as well. And this one right here has definitely been something that's been a game changer for me personally over the past few years. So first of all, before you think that business credit cards are not going to be for you, almost anyone out there can get approved for business cards if you have some sort of a small business, and that can really qualify as anything from driving Uber to dog sitting, or even just being a freelancer or a social media creator. People like this can apply for small business credit cards from many of the top issuers out there just by applying as what's called a sole proprietor through your SSN. Or if you have an LLC like I do, you can also apply using that with an EIN as well. Not only can you get these cards to take advantage of the credit card rewards you can earn from them, but I truly also think here that you should apply even if there were no rewards, because it's actually going to be a very good practice to use cards like this just to keep your personal and business expenses separate, and that way it makes things super easy for tax purposes at the end of the year. So I've got a whole video going over into much more detail about how to get approved for business credit cards, so I'll go ahead and link to that down below if you want to check that out after watching this. Now, the reason why the rewards are going to be so great here is because number one, a lot of the spending multipliers with these cards are going to be optimized for business spending. So as you spend more money here, each single dollar you spend is essentially obviously an investment to hopefully build your business over time while also lowering your taxable earnings. And then because business spend is going to be way more money than many people can even spend personally in their own life, this is another tool here that's kind of perfect for accelerating the overall amount of points you can earn. And then also, because credit card issuers want to win your business thanks to this increased spending that you might be able to put on their cards, the sign-up bonuses here with business credit cards are even higher. So personally, I've been able to get multiple business cards over the past few years, which has helped me to earn hundreds of thousands of points more than I could have otherwise without them. Now, obviously, a big theme here for the top 1% of credit card users is that most of them seem to be fine with having many credit cards in their wallet. So the next sign that I think is very underrated is that the best credit card users also know that you have to be very organized. And I think this applies to being very organized in both how you manage your credit cards as well as how you manage your overall finances. I can't say this enough, but a huge reason for why I personally feel comfortable with having 20 plus credit cards right now is the fact that I have a budget that helps me to stay on top of my spending habits. So I pretty much know exactly how much money is coming in every month, and then I know how much money is going out as I'm spending it, regardless of whether I'm spending that money with cash, a debit card, or a credit card. A big trap that people fall into as they start to introduce more and more credit cards into their life is it's very easy to lose sight of the bigger financial picture, which is just increasing income, keeping expenses low, and then just saving and investing the difference consistently for decades and decades. The points and miles you can earn along the way are fun, and they can help you to save money on things like travel, which is what I love to do, but you've got to stay organized in some way with a budget like the one that I use in Google Sheets, or at the very least, I definitely recommend using some sort of an app to help out. Now, there's also tools out there that can help you to know exactly which credit cards to use in different situations, like card pointers, for example, which I also highly recommend for staying organized with all your credit cards, so I'll link to that down below. But just find what works for you if you want to be organized and you want to be inside the top 1%, because again, you don't want to overspend, you don't want to miss any credit card payments, and you certainly do not want any unnecessary stress. Now, these next 3 things here that the top 1% do are very important to understand, because they're going to have to do with actually redeeming the points you earn from all your credit card spending. So the next sign here that you're going to be a credit card pro is that you're somewhat flexible when booking travel with points. So when you're booking travel with points, typically what myself and everyone else in the whole points miles game recommends is transferring your credit card points out to airline and hotel programs to get more value. But the detail that doesn't really get talked about as much is that transferring to these programs is really going to work best when there's award availability from these airlines and hotel programs, because that's going to give us the very best deals. That award availability is going to change depending on factors like seasonality and demand. So if you're someone who's very flexible in their dates when you're booking travel, then you're going to have a huge advantage here and a much easier time adapting your travel plans around that changing award space. But if, for example, you're someone who can only travel for vacation from Saturday, June 21st until Saturday, June 28th next year, and you have to fly between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. or something very specific like that, then unfortunately it is going to be a lot tougher to find the best deals unless you somewhat get lucky with award space on those dates. Now, I'm self-employed, so I have some of the most flexibility when it comes to booking my travel, and I'm definitely very fortunate for that. But even if you only have some flexibility, that can really go a long way in helping you to find that award space and then transfer and redeem your credit card points. So if you can, just try to be open to different travel plans, because it does make a huge difference, and it's sort of this hidden advantage in the points and miles game. Also, I'd say the best credit card users really do not get caught up too much in the cent per point value when they're redeeming their points. So some people think you have to go and only redeem your points for business class flights at values of 7 cents per point or higher, or otherwise you're just kind of wasting your points. But then other people out there are a bit more relaxed about it, and instead they choose to redeem for travel experiences that are truly valuable to them. I think value is very subjective, so even though one person might love flying a $3,500 business class flight for only 50,000 points at a 7 cent per point redemption rate, another person might look at that and say that I was never going to spend $3,500 in the first place for that ticket, so I'd rather just fly economy for a few $100 and then spend my 50,000 points for a 3-night hotel stay instead, because that flight is only going to last a few hours anyway. The idea with cent per point value is that you can compare different redemption options for your hard-earned points with a simple formula just by taking the dollar price of something and then dividing that by the points required to book it, and then you multiply it obviously by 100 to move the decimal place. But Really, once you've went ahead and calculated that cent per point value, if you're getting something that's higher than 1 cent per point to 1.5 cents per point, then you're already beating the value that most credit card issuers offer in their travel portals. So just make sure you always run the numbers for yourself when you want to redeem your points, but think about what's going to bring you value personally, and then don't get analysis paralysis here, because you also want to make sure, obviously, that you're using your points. Now, that is going to bring me to the 10th sign here. You're in the top 1% of credit card users, and that is you remember to actually earn and then burn your points instead of hoarding them. The truth is, your points and miles are not getting any more valuable as the years go on, because credit card issuers, along with airline and hotel programs, are just constantly devaluing those points. So you want to make sure that you're always earning more points, but then you also want to make sure you're using those points and redeeming them how you want to, since they're not paying you any interest, and their purchasing power can effectively actually decrease from one year to the next. I think the main point of playing the whole credit card game to travel with your points and miles is to save money on travel that you want to do, but otherwise might not be able to afford. And I know it's been amazing for me and my wife over the past few years to see new places across the US and across the world by doing this. And we've redeemed our points for as little as 1.25 cents per point and as much as 9 cents per point. But we view every single trip we've taken with points and miles as a success because we've saved money in some way, and we've just happened to save tens of thousands of dollars by doing that. We know that we can always earn more credit card points over time, so we just try to identify the top places we want to travel to. Then we try to find the best redemption options that give us a good cent per point value based on a set of flexible travel dates that work for us. And then we just go ahead and book the trip on points. We have fun, and we don't really stress too much about whether or not we could have redeemed those points for an even better deal. Now, if you're curious about how we've earned over 1 million credit card points from 20 different cards and the exact path we took to do that, then make sure to go ahead and check out this video over here on the screen next. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.